To dig deeper into the situation, CNN senior military analyst and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Admiral James Stav joins us now. James, let's get straight into this. Overnight, Ukraine lost another F-16 fighter jet and a pilot in a large-scale Russian missile and drone attack. What does this latest loss mean for Ukraine's air capability and defensive strategy?
The Ukrainians have several dozen of these F-16 fighters. They also fly a number of former Russian planes. They've still got sufficient aircraft. What they really need is more air defense. And that's why you saw President Zelensky imploring President Trump to provide more of these Patriot batteries, more of these high-altitude air defense weapon systems from the ground. I think those will be forthcoming from the United States. Bottom line, Ben, when you put it all together, all of the air defense, the F-16 fighters, the drone capability the Ukrainians have generated on their own, they're holding their own quite well at the moment. We ought to be concerned. We ought to continue to provide them these sort of weapon systems because they are fighting a nation, Russia, which very likely in the future could threaten NATO itself. It's a pretty good bet for the alliance.
Has there been any meaningful movement along Ukraine's front lines recently, or is the conflict holding in some sort of like grinding stalemate?
The latter. And if you look back, what it kind of reminds any military officer of is World War I, where you saw these huge static armies that would fight and fight for months to gain a few kilometers. There's no big sweeping blitzkriegs like you saw in World War II. There's no shock and awe campaign like you saw in the Persian Gulf. This one is really World War I, all quiet on the Western Front, grinded out warfare. And I think that the Ukrainians, again, have a good chance of holding. I think, unfortunately, their chances of actually ejecting Russia from the red area you're showing right now in the screen, the part that Russia has invaded, I think the chances of ejecting them militarily are low. Ultimately, Ben, this one probably goes to a negotiation, and I think it'll end up looking roughly like what you see right now.
Wow. Ukraine continues to push for more advanced weaponry and faster deliveries, particularly of air defense systems and long-range missiles. From a military standpoint, what do you think should Kiev's top priority be right now?
Advanced technology to enable them to continue to improve their drones. The drones have become the king of the battlefield. Number two, as we talked about a moment ago, Ben, I think air defense systems to defend their civilian population. Number three may surprise you, but it's cyber, offensive cyber capabilities to go after Russian high tech. One thing to remember, by the way, time is not on Putin's side here, in my view, because of manpower losses. He's lost 1 million young Russian men, either killed or wounded since this conflict began. He started the war with about 74 million young men. He's lost 1 million thus far in combat. That is not sustainable over the long throw. Ukraine needs the ability to continue to attrite Russian forces, but also the three systems I mentioned a moment ago.
Okay. At the NATO summit, leaders reaffirmed their continued support, right? But reports did say that Ukraine definitely seemed to have slipped down that agenda compared to previous years. Did you see that as a strong signal of long-term commitment, or are actual concrete actions lacking from these leaders?
I think both the European Union and the United States have contributed collectively well over $100 billion, provided advanced combat capability. And you're correct, Ben, the discussion of Ukraine was not front and center. But think about what was. What was on the agenda? It was a 5% increase in defense spending across Europe. If you're in the Kremlin and you're Vladimir Putin and you look at an alliance that's jumping its defense spending from 2% to 5%, you're deeply worried. And then final thought, people ask me a lot, gosh, do you think Ukraine ultimately should be in NATO? I say yes, because when this war is over, and it'll come to a negotiated conclusion, when this war is over, Ukraine is going to have the most technologically advanced, innovative, and highly blooded armed forces on the continent. We want them on Team NATO.
Interesting thoughts there. We'll have to get you back to speak more about that. Admiral James Stavridis, thank you for now. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.